calling to order the July 13, 2021 Newtown Borough Council meeting to order. Please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the pledge. Actually, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before I get into the amendments, I missed last week, and I just want to say how fantastic it is to see everyone here in person. And this is just lovely, and looking at all of you. And for the first time in 16 months, we've actually all said the pledge synchronously because we're not doing it on Zoom. And that was wonderful, so thank you. Also a reminder to council and to our consultants and professionals to please make sure to speak into your microphone because we are being now cast to our YouTube channel, Newtown Borough, Pennsylvania. And we want to make sure everyone gets heard and all the words go down, and same thing for members of the public coming to speak. So with that, I have a few amendments to the agenda. We are removing Allen Smith and Steeple View parking requirements discussion under the president and extension of the preliminary plan approval under the solicitor's report. That will be moved to our August council meeting. I am adding Allen Smith for Steeple View underneath the president's report to distribute paper sketch plans to council members and give him 5 minutes in case anybody has any specific questions about the plans that he's having them as they receive them, nothing detailed. Under the president's report, I'm also adding a PennDOT survey by TMA Bucks, and I'll describe that when we get there. Do we have any other amendments to the agenda? No? Okay, public to be heard?
Joe Lovey, 151 North State Street. I just personally wanted to thank all you guys for this unprecedented time for all your Zoom services. No one's ever practiced any of this stuff, and I just personally wanted to thank you guys for doing that. I also wanted to personally thank the chief, your staff, Sean, Steve, George, Chuck, and Jim with their spouses. Anytime in September or October, you guys are invited to my house. Put this in the minutes. For T-bone steak, what you guys did during these unprecedented events that we had in our town, which I don't know if anybody could be trained properly for that. Anything could have happened, and we saw things happen in other states. Nothing happened here, thank God, but I invite you to my house. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
John Burke, 301 South Norwood. Good evening, Council. I just wanted to announce that we're going to be holding the Luminary Drive once again starting in early August. The Luminary Drive that we did and that we will be doing has two main goals. First is, if you remember, it's to help those in need. The proceeds from this event will go to Shop with a Cop at Newtown. Shop with a Cop is a national program pairing police officers with children to afford them a better holiday season. This is actually the fourth year that they'll be running this program, and it keeps growing, so it's going very well. Newtown Township, Newtown Borough, Upper Makefield Police Departments participate in it. And then the second is really to honor and remember the first responders who gave all, actually, it's unbelievable, 20 years ago for 9/11. The idea is to have the luminaries lining the streets of Newtown Borough on Friday night, September 10th. And then as we wrap up our remembrance at Pickering Field that evening, you can walk back to your homes or back into the community, and the streets will be lit up with the luminaries. Hoping to get, last year was beautiful, hoping to get more support to really to cover the entire borough. I hope the community will once again come together and help me honor those who gave all and to help others to pay it forward. and take that money that we raise in the sale of the luminaries to donate that to Shop with a Cop. The luminary kits, once again, will be $20 each. Each kit contains 12 luminary bags, 12 candles, and a bag of sand. They can be purchased at the Newtown Hardware House starting in early August, or by reaching out to myself or really anyone. We have some block captains that have taken the lead already and are starting to organize. So we'll be out and about probably in the next 2 weeks, and any information that you need, you can just reach out to me. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Good evening, Paul Salvatore, 148 North Elm. Two things. One is Rotary held their annual golf outing, and I'd like to thank the community of Newtown for supporting us, and Councilman Swakis, he was there. It was a hot day, Bob, but we got it in, and we were able to help raise north of $17,000 for Pickering Manor, which goes back to help people in our community. The second is, if you're going up Elm Street, North Elm, be careful. Apparently, PECO is doing some road work out there, some line work. They've run a cable from across from my house, 148, up Elm, down Norwood, through the sewer drain pipe, out the drain pipe, down Norwood, and it ends at the corner. But on Elm, they've placed a big orange protector for the cable. Well, it's like a speed bump. And if you're coming up and it's dark and you don't see it, you'll find out real quick. And I did get a hold of PECO, and they laid this 2 weeks ago, and nothing's been done. And they said, well, they're going to start work on the 19th, and it may take 2 weeks. So just a little heads up for people, if you're coming up and down Elm Street, drive really, really slow. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Any other public to be heard? Okay, on to the mayor's report.
Thank you, Council President. First thing I'd like to do this evening is recognize Warren Dallas. He's the president and assistant president of the Newtown Fire Association, and he was recognized at the last meeting of the Newtown Fire Association as Firefighter of the Year for 2020. So I'd like to recognize Warren for that. We did present him with a proclamation. So Warren, if you would stand for a moment and be recognized. Thank you. Okay, next I would like to have a motion to approve a special event application for the Newtown Rotary and Family Promise Fundraiser, sponsored by the Newtown Rotary Club on Sunday, September the 19th, 2021, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on State Street between Center Avenue and Penn Street. Rain date is Sunday, September the 26th, 2021. Last meeting we had some discussion in regards to how this was going to proceed, and I don't know whether there's people here in order to make that presentation tonight to give us further clarity on that before the motion is, but I would like to get the motion on the floor first.
So moved. Second.
Okay, if we could have the representatives come and give us a little more detail on what we have been working on.
I'm Danielle Wittig, and I'm with the Rotary. Last week, you guys asked us to go to the businesses that were on that block. Everybody agreed that is open.
Danielle, I'm so sorry. I'm just going to interrupt you. And for the benefit of our secretary, who is going to transcribe this into the minutes, can you just make sure she knows you're from the Rotary, and how do you spell your name?
Sure. Danielle Wittig, and then it's D-A-N-I-E-L-L-E, and then Wittig is W-I-T-T-I-G. Good. Yep. So last week we met with you guys, presented everything to do a fundraiser on State Street between Penn and Center, closing down the street. You asked that we would contact everybody that was on that street to get their blessing to do so. We did that. If they are open, every business that is open said yes. And also part of them agreed to participate, donate, and do that as well. We also worked with the police department, and they came up with a plan to close the roads surrounding it, and Jimmy dropped off a paper that has all the information on that I can provide for you. We notified the police department and the EMS, or the EMS and the fire department today. We also got trash receptacles and bathrooms donated from Lek Waste. We counted the parking spots that it would affect. It was 29, but that was that. And I think that was everything that you guys asked for. Questions?
Can you describe exactly what's going to happen in that block that you're?
Yes. So the idea is to have local businesses and restaurants set up and offer small games like a Pop-A-Shot, cornhole, spin a wheel, and they would be, people of the community would be coming together to play those games to raise money for Family Promise, which is a local organization that helps families stay together. They're homeless families, and whereas in a traditional setting, they are separating them, but Family Promise is able to keep them together. So the Rotary is raising money for them by doing games. There'll be food, different organizations. I know we're giving back 10%, Triple Sun is, Jay McLaughlin's giving 15%. Kramer Insurance wants to do cornhole kind of games. We talked about ring toss. Christine was at the hardware house when I stopped in, and she had all sorts of cute ideas to raise money as well.
So to clarify, in the middle of the street, you're planning to have game booths, like a carnival?
Not as much booths, more as like small, I don't want to say booths because that makes it seem very carnival-esque. Yes and no, it's not going to be in the middle of the street. It will be more so each parking spot basically will have a designated space that they get to use.
So the sidewalks are clear? I'm just.
Yes.
Okay, so you're keeping the sidewalks clear, you're having games in the street, and that's okay, all right. And then are you selling tickets so that you?
We are not selling, we are suggesting donations for the games, and to get wristbands, it is a suggested donation versus selling tickets for gaming.
Okay, thanks.
The games would be in the parking places, and then the center of the street would still be available for...
For walking, as well as the sidewalks, yep.
Do we have any other questions? I think, Nicole, you had a...
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I know that just talking to businesses in the past, Sundays are good for them as far as parking goes, so losing those parking spots doesn't affect every retail store, because a lot of them don't open.
And the other side of State Street, a lot of them are coming down to help too. Pro Shop, Salt Cave, the Hardware House is down there, Cigar Shop, Countryside Framing, everyone is hoping to be a part of it.
Bob?
Will there be any activities behind the buildings adjoining the streets?
Just behind, in my parking lot. So we are I'm hoping to do, and Guru's double checking their schedule. I'm gonna have a food truck or two back there, and that's really it. We're gonna do music, but I believe that the goal is to kind of do that somewhere more central for everyone.
Danielle, I'm so sorry because you may have said this when I wasn't here last week. Which is your business? And I should know.
Triple Sun.
Pardon?
Triple Sun.
Oh, Triple Sun. Oh, okay. Yes. All right. That sounds like fun.
Thanks.
If the
I hope it
event,
does.
if the event runs till 6 or 5 p.m., what time will the streets be open?
We're hoping for 6. I'm not leaving the street until it's cleaned up,
Okay.
and I'm pretty quick. And I have an army of people that work at Triple Sun that don't have a choice but to volunteer that day.
And have we coordinated with the fire department to alert them that the
So may or may not have just texted and called Brian Gerhard, who then forwarded along the information. I know.
talked to the very nice gentleman right?
Yes, I got it.
Yep. And the ambulance services.
I left a message with them today, and I am hoping to meet with them tomorrow so that they are fully aware of where we are having it. And we also, I believe it was Mercer would be access if we needed emergency services that day.
Thanks. Chief, do you have any comments on this? I know you've already worked with Ms. Wake.
We met with them earlier today.
Thanks. Do we have any other questions from council or comments?
Public comment?
I think,
You look like
no, I was just going to say, thank you for your diligence and then to get this accomplished so everybody can understand what's going on. And I hope now that the vote can be taken.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Just as a note, over the weekend, this group, the Next Gen, and we're very proud as Rotarians. I guess we're the last gen, they're the next gen, the older members. They went down to the homeless shelter, totally reorganized down there. How many people were down there?
15, 20 people.
Okay, went
Plus
down.
kids.
And they totally emptied it out and organized it. And you'll see the photos are in the Bucks Local News on their website, and it'll be in the advance. But these kids are doing a great job, and we're very proud of what they've done. So, and in a short time, 1 week, not even, they got everything you asked them done.
So thank you, yeah. And back to the motion, we're done with council question and comment. Then is there any public question or comment regarding this proposed event? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes.
Thank you.
And
to
that
you.
special event reminder for Movies in the Park, sponsored by the Rec Board, Recreation Board, featuring the movie Babe on Wednesday, July 14th, and Free Willy on Wednesday, July 21st, from approximately 7 to 10 p.m. at Linton Memorial Park. Rain dates are the following evening. And at this point, that's all I have, Council President.
And I would just add to that, not that a lot of people are, well, maybe a lot of people are watching the YouTube. We don't even know. There is a chance of rain tomorrow night, so if that does happen, we'll be looking at Thursday for the movie. But usually with the chief and the committee, that decision's made by about 3 p.m.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, on to you, Chief.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. The police department during the month of June had 173 calls for service. Among incidents of interest, we had 8 traffic accidents. Mostly were minor. One could have been a lot more serious. A vehicle lost control and almost went into a house on South Lincoln, but was stopped by the front steps. We had 1 death investigation of a 54-year-old male, determined that no foul play was suspected. We did save an individual on Edgeboro Drive when they were found unconscious in their Uber vehicle. Narcan was administered, and they were able to bring that individual back, a 33-year-old woman. There were 2 theft investigations, which is low for us. Both were at the Wine and Spirits shop. We're receiving a lot of fraud complaints. It's rampant throughout the Commonwealth. It's unemployment fraud, where people are taking Social Security numbers of individuals and filing for unemployment compensation. There's a Pennsylvania fraud hotline, a number to call if you are a victim of this. We've been handling the ones, preparing reports on the ones of our residents. We'll get a lot of calls from businesses in our area where their employees and they're being directed to their residents' police departments as far as making those complaints. That's basically, our month. Does anyone have any questions on anything on the report?
Chief, with the traffic accidents, was there a cause? Was it speeding problems or failure to pay attention, or is it signage and lighting and something that we could pay attention?
A lot of them were minor hit and runs, like in the parking lots, where people will, think that they're immune from having to call the police if they hit a car. They figure if they can get away with it, they get away with it. So we're able to track down, on some of those, the individuals that were responsible for it. The serious accident that occurred on Lincoln, I think it was a matter of somebody hitting the gas instead of the brake, and losing control, which happens, which I'm not quite sure how to, alleviate that through any kind of signage. We did issue 47 traffic citations, a quarter of which were for speeding violations during the month of June. So,
Is there any particular zones that the speeding problems are arising?
I'm sorry, sir.
Is there any particular zones There are intersections where we're having speeding.
A lot of the speeding citations that we wrote, we were writing on State Street. There has been an impetus on doing State Street and also Lincoln. There was a request to put our speed sign on Lincoln, South Lincoln, and I spoke to Scott yesterday, and he plans on putting that up tomorrow, just as a warning sign. So those are the two big areas, Lincoln and State, were the most prominent where speeding was taking place.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks very much, Chief. All right, our other chief, Mr. Forsyth?
Good evening. I got to be honest with you, it's the first time I've seen a lot of you in person, so I am Glenn Forsyth. I'm not a big fan of Zoom, so I'm really happy to see all of you tonight. It's my pleasure to present to you the June fire report for Newtown Emergency Services and the Fire Association. Our total calls for service were 111. We completed 38 inspections in Newtown Township and 20 in Newtown Borough. I've included the full report for the fire service. We're in the process of coming up and using a new software program. So as we're learning, I hope you don't mind, you'll see a lot of different types of reports that you'll be seeing. I did include a graph, so you're going to see our calls broken down into different categories: the service calls, good intent calls, and actual fire calls. And the reason we're trying to do that is because our NIFRS reporting, that's what we have to report to the state and the federal government on our calls for service. And we have to break down our calls into these certain categories. So if you see a category that you're not quite sure of, by all means, don't hesitate to pick up the phone and give me a call. So I know when I go to the township meetings, they struggle with a good intent call, but a good intent call to us, if someone's fire alarm goes off and prior to us arriving, they call and cancel, to us, that's a good intent call. It's not a chargeable fire alarm call because something caused the alarm to go off. So if you have any questions at all, by all means, please don't hesitate to give me a call. On page 2 of the report, they're all broken down on the calls. Our EMS calls are high because we respond with the squad from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. So that's why our EMS calls are so high. Again, we do that because the squad is running with 2 people in the squad, and we're here to assist them in any calls that they may have. So in this report, I apologize for all the paper, but it listed all the calls for service that we had, so I think we may leave that in there so you can actually see where the calls are that we're responding to. So I don't think that's a bad idea. So, and the other thing we included were the inspections of the actual businesses that we inspected. So it may help you, or I know it helps us, it helps me to be able to look at and say, yeah, we did this inspection at this place. The other thing we've done in emergency services, if you hear a report where there are very minimal fire inspections completed in the borough, the reason for that is we've now centralized our inspections. Rather than doing 2 on State Street and then running the Penn's Trail and doing 2 there, we've now centralized our inspections. So if you see us on State Street, we're doing the entire street. So it minimizes us running back and forth, and it gives us more time for the public to see us and answer any questions that they may have. So we're in the process of making a lot of changes. So if there's anything I can do for you, we're here. I'm also proud to announce that Rescue 45 arrived on Friday. It's a great piece of apparatus. We are in the process of putting the equipment on it now, and we are set a goal to have it in service by August 15th. So it's great news for us. It's great to have a new piece of apparatus, and our old rescue truck has been sold. So the quicker we get the new one in service, the quicker the old one leaves town. So that's our mission right now. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them for you.
Well, thank you, Chief, and congratulations on the new apparatus. It's very exciting. Can't wait to see it. And I have a question for you about the formatting. You're looking at tweaking different ways to do the reporting, and I'm wondering what your goal is. I think it's terrific, the different things you've been able to present to us and the ways you've been able to break it down. So what are you looking for? How do you anticipate it going?
Well, some of the things that we haven't been able to get fully established yet is our training. The volunteers, we do an awful lot of training. You'll see us at nighttime. We're always at the firehouse doing training, and we haven't been able to finalize the training program of our new software yet. So we're trying to get the software to do the training the way we want it to do it. So you'll see additional things as far as training and what different special activities we do, because we have a lot of guys going off to school. Next weekend, we have a couple guys in emergency vehicle operation. So we want to make sure that we can document all that, and our elected officials are aware of what actual training we're doing. So, you know, our apparatus costs a lot of money, but we do a lot of training, and it's important that you folks who support us also understand what we do. So we have a very active recruitment drive right now. I'm not sure if you've seen the signs popping up around the borough. We're trying everything we can to recruit new members. The volunteer fire service is dwindling quickly. I've been doing it for 47 years, and you know, sooner or later you get to the point where you can't crawl down hallways anymore and do the stuff you're supposed to be doing. So we have an outstanding committee together right now that's trying to recruit new members. So if anybody's watching this meeting and has a thought of being a firefighter, please, by all means, stop at the firehouse. We'll be more than happy to talk to you. And we provide the training, so that's one good thing about it. It's a lot of training, but, you know, it's something that you can pay back to the community. And, you know, I'm very fortunate. My family's been into it for 115 years, so it's something to pay back to the town, and you always have a legacy that you know that you did the right thing for your community.
Excuse me, what's the age start on that?
We start at 16.
Thank you.
So if you have a young child at home or
I'm
a
gonna
16-year-old
send all of
home,
them.
we'd be more than happy to take them. It's always a great place to send them to keep them out of trouble, too.
Tyler turns 16 in August, all right.
There you go. There you go. So we have an outstanding junior program. They start at 16. It's a junior program from 16 to 18. When they turn 18, they're automatically elevated to a senior member, which is a 6-month to a year probationary period for them to finish all their training. But it's working out really well. We have a lot of good young people from the borough that have became active in the Fire Association, and they're making a real big impact on our department right now. So that's what we're doing. We're there all the time. You call 911, we're coming. So we're trying to keep it going like that, and hopefully we can recruit some new people and keep everybody riding the fire trucks. So.
Thanks, Chief. I think,
Have,
Mark, you had a
have
question?
there been any particular repeat offenders on the false, triggered fire alarms, or?
Our fire alarms are not, we don't have a lot of habitual fire alarms. And I gotta be honest with you, most of our fire alarms are caused by some reason. We have a lot of fire alarms for careless cooking. If we have a thunderstorm go through, that'll activate a lot of alarms. I know the PD has the same problem. So a lot of our alarms, through our annual inspection program, we've eliminated a lot of the problem alarms. So, I mean, our alarms we have a lot of alarm calls, but they're never at the same place all the time. So it's a good thing for us.
Tara? While the chiefs of both departments are here, I want to ask Michelle if we know when we will be on Liberty Street doing construction in front of both the police department and the fire department?
I guess a little further during my report, if anybody had any questions, I would have brought up that we're waiting for insurance and performance bonds from the contractor. We expect them within the next couple of weeks, and so we expect construction to hopefully start in mid-August. And we'll let you both know.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Bob. Any other questions? Thanks very much, Chief.
Thank you.
All right.
And thank you, Tara, for showing up, and Corky for our festivity we had at Station 55 last month. It was extremely hot to be cooking steaks and stuff on a grill, but thank you very
It
much.
was a great event, so we were honored to be there.
Warren Dallas has some things that he wants to apprise us of under the report.
The chief is taking care of most things, Warren Dallas. I just want to remind everybody, the Beer Fest is planned. We're back on this year after taking a year's hiatus. It will be on September 18th, Borough Council permitting. We have submitted our permit. Tickets are now on sale. You can visit newtownbeerfest.com for details. So we look forward to everybody coming out and having a good time. All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Warren. Okay, all right. Okay, on to our certificates of appropriateness. Sue?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to follow the recommendation of the Historic Architectural Review Board and direct the President of Council to sign the following certificates of appropriateness, thereby approving the historical appropriateness of the applications with final approval by the Code Enforcement Officer. COA 2021-028, 440 South State Street, Suite C4. The applicant is seeking a certificate of appropriateness for the installation of a new double-sided freestanding sign for the Newtown Park Condo Association. Our recommended approval of the application is presented. COA 2021-029, 226 South State Street. The applicant is seeking a certificate of appropriateness for the installation of a new double-sided exterior hanging sign on an existing bracket. Our recommended approval of the application as presented. COA 2021-024, 125 South Chancellor Street. The applicant is seeking a certificate of appropriateness for the relocation of an existing and previously approved fence to the property line. Our recommended approval of the application as presented. COA 2021-025, 237 South Chancellor Street. The applicant is seeking a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a two-story addition on the north side of the existing house and a bump-out addition on the south side of the house. Our recommended approval of the application as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any questions or discussions on these applications?
Only, just from my understanding and looking at the pictures, so a bump-out addition means that the first floor already exists and it's just adding the second floor as opposed to, the two-story addition on the other side?
I thought it was one story. I'm sorry, Greg, can you help me out on this? I don't have the application in front of me, I apologize.
It's 2 stories.
It's 2.
You have to come up, you're going to have to come up to the microphone, someone.
Thank you, Jim.
Newtown Borough Vice Chair. If you're looking at the house, on the right side, they're adding a second story to an original first story, a one-story bump out. On the left side, it's a new two-story addition.
Yep.
Thanks, Jim.
Sure thing.
Do we have any questions or comments from council on any of these applications? Looking to see if we have any of the applicants in the audience. Can't quite see all the way in the back there.
I don't know.
Sue, do you see any of the applicants?
I don't.
No, no one? Okay. All right, any other question or discussion? Any public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes. Sue, back to you.
Thank you. So the next is a little discussion before I make a motion. Newtown Theater is doing some renovations, both to the interior and exterior of the theater. And one of the pieces on the exterior is to replace the existing porch to make it accessible to people in wheelchairs. And I think they've done a great job of making it symmetrical and respecting the look of this historic building. Harb's recommendation was to approve the application as presented, noting that the decking and the stairs will be mahogany, which I absolutely agree with. There was another alternative in the proposal made by Newtown Theater, and that was to have clear cedar trim for the railing posts, skirt board, skirt frame, and slats, as opposed to AZAC, which is a PVC sawdust composite. And so my recommendation is to make a motion to direct the President of Council to sign the certificate of appropriateness, thereby approving the historical appropriateness of the application with final approval by the Code Enforcement Officer with the following conditions. The decking and stair treads will be mahogany, and per the alternate material proposed in the application, all trim for railing posts, skirt board, skirt trim, and slats will be clear cedar.
And Sue, are you looking for someone to make the motion? Are you proposing the motion? Or are you looking to have discussion for such a motion?
I just made the motion.
You just made the motion, okay.
I'll second.
In terms of discussion, I guess what I want to note is that this is a very important historic building for the town of Newtown. It was built in 1851. It's the oldest continuously operating theater in the United States. And I just think personally that it's really important, especially since it was given as an alternate, to put cedar as opposed to AZAC for the framing, if you will, as well as the mahogany steps and decking.
So I would just, if possible, like to hear from Harb, since it looks like we do have at least 2 Harb members here. 3, kidding.
3, yeah.
Susan, Susan, I'd like to ask a question before.
Oh, sorry.
In the presentation of the application to Harb, was the alternatives the natural material and B, the fabricated material? Was it an alternative presented?
It's part of the application.
So the applicant suggested either, correct?
That's correct, just as I suggested, a mahogany alternative for the decking, sure.
Okay, thank you.
The applicant suggested the composites as the primary and then the natural materials as the alternate.
Yes.
I want to make sure, did everybody hear that? Because you're not towards your mic. Did that go through? Marv's comment? Okay. All right, just want to make sure. Okay, so Nicole, you had invited.
Oh yeah, no, I just, because I would like to get a little bit more information, if possible.
Hello, everybody. My name is Greg Lewis. I'm at 118 Liberty Street. I'm the current chairperson from the Historic Architectural Review Board, also known as HARB. And I do want to talk about the theater HARB application, but first, my wife, Heather Lewis, is on the board. So I abstained from voting on the theater submission, but I do want to share a few things about that submission that I think are important. Jim McAuliffe and Mike Hutchinson are here to talk more about some of the specifics about what was approved and what wasn't approved. But the key to this is how we operate and how we work with the residents of Newtown to guide their projects within the historic district. And I promise I'm going to bring this back to the theater at some point.
Yeah, for a second. I know you had to recuse yourself during the discussion. Are
Yep.
you representing the theater right now or
No,
HARB?
HARB.
Okay, so I have a question whether, since, since Greg had recused himself because of being married to the applicant, right?
Yep.
Whether he should be speaking to this application right now.
Can he speak to
I'm asking
our
our
guidance?
solicitor. Yeah.
Whenever there's a conflict, it prevents somebody from voting on or participating in the discussion leading up to that vote. The fact that there may be a conflict, I don't think prevents Mr. Lewis from offering his opinions after the vote has been taken by HARB. So I don't believe there's any conflict that prevents him from speaking now.
Okay, well, I guess my question then is, if you're going to be speaking in support of the application from the theater, or whether you're explaining HARB's vote, which you weren't a part of. I guess that's where I'm trying to draw the line.
I'm going to get there really fast. I'm going to talk more about the standard that we follow and not about the specific of the application, because I think it's important to talk about how we consistently make recommendations for every resident of Newtown and try to prevent at all costs deviating from the standard that we follow. And in this case, I think the suggestion is a deviation from the standard that we follow. And I can let Jim McCullough or Mike Hutchinson talk more about what that is specifically. But the magic to this is that when residents call us and ask us for advice on what is recommended or not recommended, we don't talk about what is approvable or not approvable. We talk about what the standard recommends. And the standard is the Secretary of the Interior standard for the treatment of historic properties with guidelines for preserving, rehabilitating, restoring, and reconstructing historic buildings. They have a list of recommended and not recommended actions with regard to historic properties. In the past year, we've seen 66 applications, and 100% of those applications, 100%, we have followed those standards with no deviation. I believe we need to continue to be consistent to allow us to help our residents and guide them on their projects when they do call for advice, and to navigate the process successfully. The case of the theater is an interesting one. They did seek advice proactively before the HARB meeting. They did talk to the HARB members in the public forum. They did get feedback, including feedback from our paid consultant on the design of their front decking. The public also, during the official HARB meeting, had a chance to comment on the materials and the design. There was no public comment. Ultimately, the theater submission was approved with 100% of the HARB members recommending and supporting their project, and it was no surprise. It was completely and 100% aligned with the standards that we follow. I always worry when we deviate from our standards because it creates and might create a seeming unfair situation where for one neighbor, we would approve certain materials, and for another, we don't. That is something that we work very hard not to do, and we don't want to do it here either. If we're inconsistent, it's very difficult for us to help our residents when they come in front of us for a project. So I'm asking that you support the HARB recommendation as submitted with regard to the theater. That being said, if you have specific questions, I have asked Jim McCullough and Mike Hutchinson to also participate here to talk more about what we did and did not approve. Thank you.
Nicole, you asked for all three, correct?
Oh, no. I mean, that it's okay. I guess
No, well, I would be interested to hear, but I want to make sure.
then
you
yes,
have-
I did ask for all three.
Specifically about that choice of the AZEC, and I know all the time we approve AZEC trim, and this is only trim, the AZEC on the new construction. And as far as HARB's decision to, on this particularly notable building, yet be consistent, permit the AZEC, but say that we need to use the alternative of mahogany in the decking and the stair treads. But I wanted to make sure I wasn't running over your.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Hi, Jim McCullough, Vice Chair. What we did is we looked at it. The theater came in twice. They came in for preliminary and for a final review. So we talked a lot to them about, it was mostly about the design approach and the project goals. And then the second meeting we had was mostly talking about the materials. So, you know, we made it clear that this is an addition to an existing structure. The stair that's there now is not historic. We don't know when it was installed, but it was clearly not original to the building. So our consistent review of this is to look at it as an addition, because they were adding an enlarged, you know, stair landing and adding a lift. And with that category, we have consistently given applicants the option to use natural materials or artificial materials. In this case, the applicant came in and they were presenting artificial materials, I think pretty much everywhere, including the decking. And we annotated our recommendation to have wood decking and wood treads, because it's a consistent recommendation that we've done for porches, for front porches. We've consistently, recommended artificial materials for the remainder of new additions, whether it's porches or, other work. So that's kind of the nutshell, overview of how we considered and reviewed the application. That makes sense?
Yes.
So my understanding is that the HARB recommendation was to use the alternate natural material for the treads and decking, but to allow the primary composite material for the railing posts, skirt board, skirt trim, and slats. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact language of the alternate, but we did, like I said, we wanted them to use wood for the treads and the deck, so.
I can read it if you like. Composite decking, charcoal color, alternate painted mahogany decking, PVC trim for railing posts and skirt board, skirt frame and slats, white color, alternate clear cedar trim.
Okay.
But HARB, for those things, approved the primary and didn't require the clear cedar, is it?
That's correct, yeah, that's right, yep.
And
Yep. That, I think from my understanding is that the cable rail system works well with that, artificial trim materials for the most part.
that's my next question. I've never heard of being able to use horizontal wire very well with natural wood. I've always seen it be the more PVC type.
Yeah, I think the structure is wood, obviously, like the framing and the posts and all the stuff that's going to be hidden, yeah.
Wooden core.
Right, yep.
So I did observe on Zoom, observe the HARB meeting. So first I want to make a comment about whether public comment was, I know it was by the notes requested, but the public really couldn't weigh in on this particular issue because the public doesn't have access to that application in advance of the meeting. So there was no way to see that and to see what was being offered, to be able to say, I see the applicant has offered the alternate of clear cedar, to say, why didn't you choose that, or have you considered that? So that's my first point. So I wouldn't put any emphasis on the fact that public didn't say anything at the time. The couple people we did not have the application to be able to ask that question, okay? My second concern is that I know that HARB has approved AZAC trim. The amount of AZAC trim on this porch, I would consider more than just trim here and there. So you have an elevated porch, the sides up from the ground up to the level of the porch has the grills custom made out of strips of plastic, painted plastic.
No, it's an artificial material.
Well, it says they're painting it.
Yeah.
It said in the application it would be painted.
You can paint artificial material, yeah.
It says PVC in the application. It's actually composite of PVC and wood.
Yeah, cellular PVC.
Okay, whatever it is, but it's painted, right?
We don't, as you know, the HARB doesn't, we don't like.
I know you don't care about colors.
No, sorry. We don't recommend brands.
Right, I understand that.
The term we use, yeah.
Whatever, PVC, it was listed as, on the drawings that I saw later, it says PVC. So anyway, there are great expanses of a plastic type material, okay, on this. It's not.
It's artificial trim, but yes, go ahead.
Whatever you want to call it, okay, whatever you want to call it. So underneath all of it, however, is wood.
Correct.
So it's basically laminated. So, but the applicant offered wood. And I don't recall in the discussion at all at that meeting whether all of the alternates were actually discussed. Did anybody say, oh, I see you're offering, you could use what is noted on the drawings as PVC, or the alternate being clear cedar? And do you have a preference, or do we have a preference? I mean, I don't recall that conversation happening, and what worries me is that this is an old building. It is we want, that whatever restoration and renovation and additions and so on are put on this building should be something that makes it even better. And I think the design that's being proposed is very nice, it's very interesting, it's a good solution to the problem. But I just have this feeling that the materials that were chosen are not going to give it the solid feel that different materials would. And my concern is that it's not that we're forcing the applicant to take something they didn't offer. It's that we're not taking, that I want us to be able to take the applicant up on what might be the better material long-term, which would be the wood material as opposed to the plastic.
Okay.
It's more of a,
Well, yeah, 'cause I'm not, so I was just gonna say, I'm not an expert on this, hence the reason why I was asking our volunteers that have a bigger expertise in this. All I know is that the ASAC, and I know you can't say a brand, but that's what it is.
in this case you can because it's in the application.
Okay, it's not vinyl. It is almost like the cement board siding that we are approving every addition that we do. It looks beautiful, it's paintable, it is strong, it's way more weatherproof than wood. I mean, if you do a little bit of research on it, and I did just do research on it because I just replaced the front staircase at my shore house, and we ended up going the extra mile and doing that instead of doing just a regular cedar, because over time it really does last, and we still have the wood on the decking to make it look it's going to look great, I think, and especially if you're going to be painting the cedar anyway, then this is just such a good option out there. And again, if it's something that we have been approving, that's the other reason why I would kind of like to stick with that, because I just don't want to give a higher expectation to something that their neighbor next door doesn't have to do.
The Harb really doesn't consider maintenance. It's not something that Harbs can, evaluate, I'll say.
That's a problem.
So we consistently don't review energy conservation or maintenance.
Joe, that's for another topic if we want to review the Harb ordinance. That would be a separate topic. Right now, no. We have a motion on the floor. We haven't called the public. We will call the public for this vote, and you can have a turn.
Has Harb approved horizontal wire railing on the front of a historic property yet?
I don't know if we have. I don't know if it's come up. But this was, the reason we thought that this would be successful here is because of the transparency. You're seeing through the guard and allowing the historic facade to kind of take precedence. So we thought it was a very good proposal for that.
Yeah, I think, I just want to say that the maintenance piece, as you said, is not something that Harb can consider. And if we go that path, then that means vinyl windows and all kinds of other things, which Harb has certainly not recommended or approved in the past. To me, the most important piece is what Julia mentioned, which I also said in the beginning. This isn't something we're imposing on the applicant. It's an alternative that they offered. And I agree that I think it's the better alternative and that it makes sense to take it.
Understood.
And would the key here be that you're considering this to be an addition, meaning that if somebody just wanted to put horizontal wire on their Victorian porch, it might not be looked at the same way?
Well, it's a design question, right? So in this particular case, the standards are pretty clear about additions being of their time and not trying to mimic the style of whatever they're being added to. So in this case, a modern design works, I think is going to work really well, because it's going to be, you'll see through. You're not going to see the cable railing. You're going to see the brick behind it, and that's the main event, is that front elevation. So putting cable rail on a Victorian porch of a front house I don't know. I don't know if that would work as well. You know, it's like it's a style and it's a design question. It hasn't come before us yet, so.
I don't know if I would want to see this as a precedent for that, but then I guess I'm asking if somebody wants to replace their front porch, is that considered an addition?
No,
Probably not, yeah.
we always recommend replacement in kind. We never recommend tear it down and put something up for existing structures. And we're pretty consistent about that. Sue's heard that. We're pretty rigorous with that kind of thing.
Whereas this was never there before.
Correct.
It's not.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else?
Tara? First, I want to thank the volunteers of HARB, because you work really hard, and you try to achieve the best for the community. However, as the council, as elected officials, we report to the electorate, and we're the gatekeepers that have to make the final decision. So I'm not trying to lecture you, but in the hierarchy of who has to ultimately decide, it's council. And that's without any disrespect. Well, I'm addressing a prior speaker here.
Okay.
We
Addressing
provide
the prior-
recommendations to council further action, yeah.
The last recollection I have of a problem in disapproving something was with the bank when they wanted to replace the windows with non-wood, and we went all the way to the court on that. Okay? The buildings on State Street are part of the historical area, but they're even more special. And the applicant came to us with A or B, and I'm not certain why we're having a little bit of a hostility between all of us here as to why we just can't go with the alternative of wood, which, in my mind, would prevent other people from coming and saying, well, it's an addition, it's a restoration, it's a something, but we want to use a non-natural material. So when you talk about the consistency of HARB's action, I'm looking at the consistency of council's action on State Street with the most important buildings there that we highlight with a tour guide, self-tours. We need to maintain the integrity of the materials. And since the alternative of A or B is on the table, and B is acceptable being the wood, and that's consistent with what I view as what we did with the bank, why can't we approve the wood? Because it's not, nobody has talked about price, nobody's talked about it'll look different, but it's the integrity of the material and the consistency of what council does in making the final decision for the betterment of everybody. So that's, I'm not I went to an engineering school, but I'm not of the caliber of knowing all these materials, but I'm looking at the aesthetic quality and the maintenance of what we have that is so special in this town. First of all, it's the people, and secondly, it's the unique buildings. And this particular building, along with Borough Hall, are the oldest continuous use buildings in the United States. And to put a non-wood material on that building troubles me seriously. Not that it wouldn't work, but that we're adding something that's artificial onto something that's pure, historic, and important to all of us. And that's where I come out on this. Thank you.
Understood. We don't have a list of special or non-special buildings in the district. We apply the same review to every building, because we have to. We don't, in the middle of a meeting, say, oh, this building is better than that one, so we have to look at it in a different way. So that's my defense of what HARB does.
Mr. McAuliffe, if I could ask a question in regards to alternate materials. If I'm not mistaken, one of the things about someone that has a standing seam roof, they were all pretty much done out of copper. Is it true in the past that you have approved aluminum and other things that's going to be painted from that standpoint so that it's either better maintenance or less expensive from that standpoint? Is that would be the same as using AZAC painted versus regular wood?
It's not to do with maintenance or with cost, but availability.
Okay.
So turn-coated copper is almost impossible to get as a replacement to like painted tin. Lead-coated copper is just no can do anymore.
right.
So, you know, at some point we have to give guidance to the applicant and say, we have to provide a couple options for them, right? So that's the option that we've.
And if it's painted, it's in.
It's pre-fitted. It's usually
Can't see
pre-fitted.
what the difference between, you know, whether it's tin, copper, or
Yeah, it's.
aluminum for that sake, and it'd be the same with the AZAC that's being put on this building.
Yes, yes.
So, once it's painted, you'd have no idea whether it's one or the other.
Yeah, it's.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And this is more to Bob than to you, Jim, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I appreciate your impassioned statements, Bob, and that means a lot. I just want to be really clear for council and for the audience. The windows at the bank, which you mentioned, those are existing windows, and this is an addition, new porch decking. So that is why there's that different approach, just to make sure the existing in replacement or repair is different than something new. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to kick you out there, Jim. I want to confirm, does anybody else have any questions for anybody from HARB? No. Are there any other comments from council members or any other questions? No. Okay, public to be heard.
Joe Lovey from 151 North State Street. I wasn't at the other meetings. I have a historical house, but Nicole, you hit the nail on the head. Materials. First of all, wood. Mr. Lewis, you said it best. The standards that you use have been standards for a long time. I believe these standards, though, are historical. Because one thing that we don't have years ago, bear with me, I typed it down. Environmental issues and global warming. Robert, you want wood. We just had California half burned down. You want wood. I have to be honest with you. I look at these windows, all these brand new houses being put up. I can't tell the difference what it is. I see the style of the window, if it has 6 panes, 10 panes, or it rolls out. That's the illusion. But I have to go back to HARP from a standard perspective, okay? You don't consider maintenance. You made me buy historical. I'm going to start. Mahogany windows. This is not 100-year-old mahogany. This is 7 years old. This is not the same wood that these historical buildings. Our founding fathers, as the board, this is an advisory group. As the board, we have to think of environmental issues. We never got a bill from PECO years ago saying you're energy efficient, okay? I had somebody from the HARP group that was a consultant who told me, yes, Joe Lovey, you're right. If you buy those pine windows, they're gonna rot. You're right, Joe. Putting up storm windows in front of that, that's not historical integrity. Okay? Storm windows are ugly. She said, Joe, you're absolutely correct. It's a waste of money. In 15 years, these things are going to rot. I will let you know, this mahogany deck, it's shade. It will rot. Probably in 20 years. It will not be historical like these historical buildings being put up. This is synthetic. I have one of the oldest fireplaces in my house. It was the oven. I have a wood-burning stove, I was told by the Newtown fireplace. It's one of the 3 oldest stoves there. It was from Benjamin Franklin. He basically said we have to do like the Europeans, stop burning down the trees in the open fireplace, so they created that. You guys have to think about environmental issues. Wood? Save the trees. Save the oxygen. Come on, Robert. I know you believe in this stuff. But then we care about, I want historical. Make the windows look the way they are, but there are synthetic, that's the proper word, not asynthetic, synthetic materials that are better than the materials today. You can use Boral, okay, crushed stone or whatever it is and so forth. I have it on my piece. You wouldn't even know. What I'm trying to tell the board is this. One thing that these are historical standards, and they're historical. We need to think out of the box, and you guys can think out of the box because that's an advisory group, okay? We have to think about maintenance. You know why? It costs money. And what is it? When you don't maintain it, then you guys come back and say demolition by neglect, okay? It's great that everybody advises everybody else what you should have and spend my money. I expect you guys to push a little pressure on the historical guys to say, maybe we need new standards to address environmental and global issues. Because truthfully, there are better materials out there than this wood, and it's young wood. And we had fires that burned down. I'm sorry I'm redundant, but I'm sorry. Do you know why the lumber went up? Mr. Hutchinson, you know it. Did lumber not skyrocket? You're a builder, am I wrong? By 70% probably, correct? Why did it go up? It wasn't just because of COVID. The forests are burning down.
Joe?
I'm sorry.
No, I want to
Another
make sure if
time.
anybody else has any other comment, but I think
But
it's
I think
important.
I brought up a good point, and I think we should think about this in the back of our head.
Yeah, and I want to let you know, and I know our Harb and privately can speak to you more about it, but I do know that this is something that's part of the conversation of these national standards, of how do we do that. So
The national standards, bear with me. The national standards in Pennsylvania, okay, some of the historical stuff out in Massachusetts, okay, just as old, Plymouth Rock, you know, the Pilgrims flew over there. They've changed it. They look at synthetic. Look, let's be realistic. Pennsylvania, the founding fathers are here. We still use the Commonwealth. Mr. Clark, am I wrong? Commonwealth. There's only 4 states in the United States that use the common law. We are pretty backwards in Pennsylvania. Am I wrong? So at the end of the day, my attitude as a group, not just the standards and the states, let's think as a group. We have impact here in our town and an environmental issue and so forth. Let's make that a thought. Not kill more trees so we have the historical thing. Because I tell you what, if George Washington, if he wouldn't have put wood in his teeth, he had wooden teeth and so forth. He didn't have materials to put plastic and stuff like that. Come on, I want the board to think out of the box because truthfully, I believe HARP has to start to think out of the box, and I think it's historical standards, and it has to address maintenance, environmental issues, and so forth.
All right,
Sorry to
thank
be
you, Joe.
redundant.
I want to
I'm
make sure
sorry.
that people have the opportunity. Thank you. Do we have any other public comment on this vote? No one wants to get up? Okay. Well, I think we're ready to call to question if no one has anything else to say. All right. Call to question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Mr. Mayor, it's on you, this momentous decision.
Can I just ask a point of clarification? The motion on the floor is to accept the application with mahogany and with clear cedar. So we just voted no for that, right? So what is it that?
We talked.
Split vote.
Right. So if the mayor says yes, what does that mean?
The mayor says yes to the vote, then the vote is to.
We don't have a motion to approve the Harb
Well,
application.
you have the motion. If he says yes, then the motion to use mahogany and clear cedar wins. If he says no, then he votes against the motion, and then we need a new motion.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Just making sure I'm voting on the right thing, okay? Because I know I am voting no. So the motion that's on the floor fails.
Correct.
Thank you.
Fails 3 to 4. And so now this application is still in front of council at this moment. So another motion would be in order.
So I would like to make a motion to direct the President of Council to sign the certificate of appropriateness, thereby approving the historical appropriateness for the application with final approval by Code Enforcement Officer for the following conditions. The decking and stair treads will be mahogany, and as per the HARB recommended, I don't know what the word we're going to use. And as per,
You can just vote to accept the HARB recommendation.
As recommended, yeah.
as HARB recommended.
Yep.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any comments or question on this motion? Do we have any public comment or question on this motion, other than to not save the trees? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
I counted 2 nays. Did you nay or did you aye? You ayed. So we have 2 nays, Bob and Sue, and 4 ayes. Motion passes. All right. Thank you to our members for HARB for coming to speak before us and answer questions and help us through this. We appreciate your time tonight on top of your usual meetings and all the time you take reviewing your applications. I guess Mr. Hutchinson didn't get up and say anything. I don't want you to feel left out. Is there anything else you wanted to say? You don't have to come up if you don't want to. All right, thank you. All right. All right, and we're assuming that what you're saying now you don't want on the record and isn't going out to YouTube. No, okay. All right, thank you.
It's a secret.
Okay, all right, and thank you, Sue. And now we're on to the President's report, and I am extremely thrilled to report and want to honor Nicole Rodowitz for all her hard work. The Green Light Go Grant Award of $271,520 for the modernization of the Lincoln and Washington Avenues traffic signal. It's been a long time coming, and Nicole got us the money. So Nicole, would you like to talk about it?
Thanks. So this Green Light Go grant was provided as reimbursements to municipalities for updating to improve the efficiency and operation of existing traffic signals. Basically, when you put the grant application in, you could have used it for a number of things. I was actually put on task to try to see if we could get it for the upgrading of the Lincoln and Washington Ave whole intersection. So while it seems crazy that $271,000 will pay for one intersection, that is what's going to happen. We're going to be adding 8 handicap crosswalks. There will be obviously a new light. There will be pedestrian crossing signals, and there's actually a lot of moving of poles, which luckily our mayor, Corky Schwartz, had written a letter. No, it's a big deal because his house is right on the corner, and that pole is going to have to actually be moved onto Corky's property. So he did write a letter to support this, which was thank you very much. When Julia was helping me go through the grant process, she said little things like, well, why don't you walk with an umbrella and show that you can't get through between the light and Corky, and which is true, a double stroller, I mean, 2 bikes, it's just, you can't even really get through there. So clearly anyone actually that is in a wheelchair would have a very hard time. So thank you to council for being supportive, because there is we do have to write a letter, which will happen over the probably next month. I'm not sure exactly when, that we will also be giving a financial contribution to make it all happen. So thank you, everyone, and I'm glad we got it. Good news.
Congratulations, Nicole, on your hard work.
Thanks.
Because it took a lot of time and a lot of walking around the streets in order to get that accomplished, and you did that very well. So you're to be commended.
Yeah, And a lot of writing, so thank you.
A lot of writing.
Just one question. Nicole, what is the timetable for doing this?
So we actually do not know exactly, but once we get the official letter, and Michelle will do the official write-up, and then at that point, it would be looking either into the 2022 budget at the very earliest or the 2023. Yeah, so it's still a bit off.
All right, thank you. Okay, it has been requested of me that we have a brief and necessary break, so I'm going to recuse the meeting for 5 minutes, so 2021. So 8:21, please return.
So says you.
Okay, next we have the review of the memorial sign policy. We had discussed last month having a policy for honorary memorial sign toppers. The initial proposal was brought to us by John Burke, who's here in the audience. I put together in policy format the suggestions that were made by council and some parameters such as they have to be above existing street name signs only, only on street sign poles, they're two-sided, only one on any existing, one existing pole. All right, and it does not rename streets, does not duplicate current official street names, and you can't get Borough Council recognition or approval for a sign topper on more than one street name sign. And I also put in here, and this is, I wanted the council's input on this, that they may not be located along Lincoln Avenue, Washington Avenue, and State Street between Jefferson Street and Lincoln Avenue. And the reason is these are major through roads, and perhaps we don't want to identify it, cause confusion from somebody who is going through the borough. Alternatively, we could just say not on state-owned roads. So I did want council's input on that.
So is Lincoln a state road? I don't.
No.
It's not, no.
No, I added, that's why the alternate is. The alternate is state roads, which means it's just Washington and state, or we add Lincoln on the forbidden roads because it is a through road.
I think that that's a good idea.
Any other comments, or is everyone good with just having those three be not part of the options?
There's a point of, so if Lincoln and Jefferson were to want to have that, you would not agree to that, Lincoln and Jefferson?
Could you put it on Jefferson?
Well, you're still, it's going to be on, because the signposts are on Lincoln Avenue, they're not on Jefferson.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm just asking because you have labeled it that way, and I'm not advocating that anyone would want to rename that intersection.
Right.
Or from that standpoint, but if you do Lincoln, then it's Lincoln Avenue from Green all the way down to State. And I'm just, making sure that that's the point that you're trying to make.
That was the
Fine, okay.
proposed idea. I'm not deeply invested in it such that I'm really advocating to council, yes, we must do this. But I do think definitely our state-owned roads shouldn't have it. And the question is, do we include Lincoln in that as one of the major through roads?
And just for clarity, that's all. Thank you.
All right. And I just realized I had a mistake because I have only one sign topper on any one existing pole and then up to two at any intersection coinciding with existing street name signs. Are we good with having one on one corner going this way and one going that way, or should we just stick with one pole? So which one?
I think one.
Am I being clear? Does that make sense? Okay, so we've got Bill Cruisen on this street, but like Susie Smith on this street. And so you've got this street name, do they both get a topper? Or is that pole taken once one person's on it going one direction?
I think you only have one top of a pole. So the second second street name is below the first one.
So that wouldn't work because of how it, yeah. So one per pole?
So on one per pole with it being a topper.
All right.
I think we could get away for the time being of being one per intersection. If we ever got to the point where we ran out of intersections, we could always amend the policy, but
right.
It seems like it might as well spread them out. So I would say just leave it at one per intersection.
One per, right. And that, I think the poles, you have one per intersection anyway. The qualifications are the recommendations that council members made in our discussion a month ago. They must be deceased. The candidate must have a distinguished record of significant and notable impactful service in Newtown Borough and or the surrounding community such that the service positively impacted borough residents, the determination of which shall be left to the sole discretion of Borough Council. The candidate must be...
And on that one, probably the discretion of Borough Council could be enough, but I'd like to consider whether somehow the verbiage would say long-lasting. In other words, it's not just, how long a person may have been either in some organization or doing something, but did something that outlived even the original action, and whether that would be an absolute requirement or just something that would give it extra,
Oomph.
punch.
So is impactful, because the phrasing we had last time was, well, actually we had significant and notable, and I put in impactful as well, just trying to capture that. Would impactful carry that it lasted beyond a short moment? Or shall we add long-lasting?
I was trying to say either long-lasting or long-term, but exactly how to put that in,
Sure, okay. The candidate must be a longtime resident.
Borough resident?
I'm best, sure, it would not be a resident of some other place, but yes, we'll add borough. If the candidate is a wartime veteran, that service may be considered positively toward approval, but is not a necessary criterion. And last, I picked this up off of another policy for street sign toppers, and I thought we may want to add this, which is the candidate must be a person and may not be a class or group of people, event, place, organization, ideology, or commercial interest. I would ask our solicitor, is that something that you think is a good idea for us to include, or do you think that we don't need that because it's overkill?
I don't think having it in there is a problem. It might be a little bit of overkill, but it's better in these instances just to be very clear, so there's no confusion later on down the road. I think it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. And Michelle, we'll ask your particular attention in this area, the design and appearance. I have sign toppers shall not be retroreflective, shall not mimic or resemble a traffic control device in the Pennsylvania Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. The sign toppers shall not have linear dimensions which exceed the length of the existing street name sign. I didn't say anything about height. I don't know if we want to add anything about that or not, and I didn't know what it would be. The geometry and colors of sign toppers shall be at the discretion of the applicant, subject to review and approval through the sign topper program permitting process. The design and appearance of sign toppers should be contextually appropriate for the location. And they shall not impede driver's sight distance or otherwise create a safety hazard.
I would suggest that we do need maximum dimensions for height, and that the design and appearance of sign toppers shall be contextually appropriate for location, not should.
Shall, okay.
And I'm a little concerned about the geometry and colors being at the discretion of the applicant. I think that we need to have some guidance there.
Or does they come to us with their idea and then we say, oh my gosh, it's like fluorescent green, that's too much, we can't stand it, and come back with something else? And that's part of the subject to review and approval.
Well, and then instead of saying discretion, you could say proposed to council by the.
Okay, proposed. What I don't want to do is us sitting there having to go through catalogs, coming up with what we like and don't like, I guess, and then the catalog changes. How do you feel about that?
Doesn't it seem like it would make more sense to have one size and style and color for however many we have?
For consistency?
Yeah.
I'm not sure the street signs are consistent in size and color either.
Well,
That's another problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you're right now you're saying the linear dimensions. Well, say the linear dimensions are 2.5 to 3 feet, for example, but for length. But then you aren't saying whether it doesn't go up 3 feet.
Yeah.
You have to have some kind of cutoff.
No, sorry, Michelle, what would you suggest as a height? Or should we come back with that?
I think it's up to the council right now, what they would want to do. We looked into this by calling PennDOT and looking into their regulations, and there weren't any specific dimensions required by PennDOT. I would suggest that you might not want it to be longer or more in width than what your typical street sign is right now. But as to height, I don't think there were, I'm thinking in my mind that someone might want a particular design because that was important to that person, but.
Like sometimes they have the little curlicues on top or something.
Something like that.
So
But if the borough wants a specific standard and all of them to be the same, then you should include that in your policy.
And then we have to figure out what that is, and that's a whole nother decision-making process over what it looks like to make them all consistent, or do they get to be individualized?
And by doing that, you could look at other sign toppers and get their dimensions and bring it back to council and to see what council wants to do for a maximum height, since it's never been done in the borough before.
Okay, yeah, the ordinance that I was looking at to see what else is out there in the ordinance, the policy, it had 12 inches, which seemed tall, but maybe signs are bigger than you realized.
Oh, sorry.
Sure, come up.
Two things. I would recommend going with one consistent style and color, right? So what I've seen in other communities, ours is for the most part black with white lettering, then have it white with black, so you know it's not a street sign. It's different, sets apart from all the other street signs in the community. And what you can do is the one that you're putting on top of, match that dimension. So what I did is I looked at what Lafayette and the size of that sign is, and they have a standard size and it fits it perfectly. So height is standard and length is standard. So it just matches what it's sitting on top of.
Do you remember that dimension?
It's 36 by, I want to say 6 inches. I mean, I have
I was just wondering, yeah, I just.
But I would say whatever you're putting it on top of, it should match that design. So
Right, no higher
they're
than.
not all the same.
So I want to clarify, no higher than the actual height.
Existing sign.
Existing
Yeah,
sign.
it should copy that size.
Okay, all right. I'd vote for like maroon and dove gray to go with the borough colors. So that's me. All right, thanks, John. Okay, so we will come back with measurements that are specific, and it is to point that we do have different sizes.
I do agree with the having them all kind of be similar in coloring.
Okay. And, yes. Oh.
It's okay. Before you guys go down this slippery path with all these signs, Edward Hicks lived in this town, just sold a painting. Everybody knows of Edward Hicks, even in Europe, okay? Because I didn't know the painting just sold for $4.8 million, okay? We don't even have a street named after Edward Hicks.
Right. He does have a memorial, like, state sign.
Hear me out. My thought is that I think these are great ideas to do for people, but why don't we then take a sign? We just bought a piece of property near the Bird in Hand. Why don't we just put all these signs in the park and so forth, instead of cluttering up our streets, who's this person, who's that person, and maybe we make one of the parks that which we're naming and so forth, a sculpture park of signs or something like that. Or you plant a tree in memorial of somebody and so forth.
There's a lot of great ways to memorial, and what was proposed to us by John Burke, he came to ask for the specific block where this person lived.
I know
and
that,
we need a policy to govern it.
But that's just it, but here's my thing. There's a whole bunch of old people on my block, and then all of a sudden, then you can't put it on this street, you could do it on that street, and then there's this code and that. We're spending more time putting policies and procedures for a sign. I would rather see you put more policies and procedures of running the town rather than I mean, I don't know this gentleman, but I respect this gentleman. My thought is I thought we don't know what to do with all these parks. Put maybe some street signs in these little parks and so forth, of sculpture and so forth. It's just an idea that we don't have to worry about later from an engineering perspective, what height it should go. And then all of a sudden, somebody changed the stop signs from some regulatory person, and then we have to worry about this and that. Keep the street signs to the street signs. We want to memorialize people. Let's do it in one of these pieces of parks that we have here and so forth. I think it's a great idea, but code, what color? This is noise. Come on.
All right.
Think about this.
Thank you, Joe. But we are also being responsive to our residents, and we've had a request.
What it is that I'm just speaking as a resident. You guys run our town, but we're colors and stuff. If we put it in the park, we really don't matter what height and so forth it goes. Then I come back, what height do you want it in? How do you want your sign? Put it in the park. We'd have to have less rules and regulations.
I guess, Joe, but
Just a thought, I
I
apologize.
was gonna say, we do have donation benches that we do, as a borough, decide what plaque gets put on the benches when the person pays for it. They don't have an option.
Nicole, I heard about benches on State Street years ago when I moved here from a historical perspective, and I was always told that you can't have park benches because it's not historical.
But I'm sorry.
Okay, oh, now, yes, no, you.
No, I
you're
was just
talking about
saying,
park benches.
it's good to, if this is something that will be approved, to have a standard set.
Well, what it is that all height, colors, and so forth, if we leave our street signs to the street and whatever you call that, and we take these signs and colors and put them in one of our parks, this bird in hand and so forth that we just acquired, which we don't know what we're gonna do with, let's put a whole bunch of street signs in there.
Thank you, Joe, and.
Bye-bye,
this-
guys.
Yeah, this is John came up because he came to us with this specifically. So otherwise, we're trying to work our way through this. Thank you. Okay, where were we? Permitting, okay. So a simple permit, they shall be owned by the applicant. A cost associated with installation, repair, maintenance, and/or replacement shall be at the expense of the applicant. I've got 60 days that they need, prior to coming to Borough Council, they need to send a letter to everyone, the addresses on the streets adjacent to, around that block, and that they're, with their proposal. And the applicant shall be responsible for maintaining all costs associated with maintaining it. And if maintenance is required, the applicant will be contacted by the borough and shall have 60 days to make the necessary repairs or replacement. So if we're good with all that, are we good with 60 days? I kind of came up with this. There's no specific reason other than it seems appropriate. So if anybody has a different opinion, or we just go with this because it's consistent with other kinds of repairs, but not as much as a sidewalk, which is bigger to do. Good? Okay.
I think the 60-day notice to residents seems a long time, no? Yeah.
Well, I guess the question is it a notice, or are you getting permission? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it like a petition that you're asking
I think
everyone
you're giving them
around
the
you?
opportunity to say they think it's a bad idea, they don't like it, or they
Right.
do like it. Do you want to make it 30 days?
I think that makes more sense.
I don't have an opinion.
I'm fine, we're a small town, 30 days, okay. There's raising 60 days for repairs or replacement, they might need to order the new one or something. Yeah, okay, and they shall be removed if the applicant is unavailable, unwilling, or otherwise fails for any reason to provide for maintenance or replacement. And we need a resolution for final approval, and that's it.
So under that last one there, I would say to add final approval of design topper design, or sign topper design and placement must be specified by resolution in.
Design and, okay. Good with that? All right, so I will go back and add in our changes, and then we can put it on the work session agenda. And we've reached this point, but we haven't passed it yet. Mike, can we pass it with the changes and then I put them in, or should we wait to the next agenda, next meeting when everybody can see it all written out and then vote on it?
You can adopt it as amended this evening if you would like to. I would just like to maybe make one suggestion about dropping down to the 30-day notice. If that notice goes out shortly after you have a meeting, or right around the time of your meeting, and then someone doesn't get it their way or whatever, there may not be another meeting for them to come and express, if they have concern over this, to be able to express it to council. So 60 days sometimes will make sure that you're going to encompass at least, you're not going to, there's always going to be a meeting within that 60-day period of time. In case someone, Nicole was asking if it's a petition. It's not really a petition, but if somebody wants to come and for whatever reason offer their opinion on whether or not you
Like they were actually a scoundrel and a thief.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's flexible. Do you have
Just something to consider. That
So I have a question I should know the answer to. What is the requirement for notification for new development or something, a Saldo thing? Is that 60 days? It's really short, so it seems odd to me that we would have 60 days for a sign and much less for something more impactful to the community.
I guess they could always send an email.
I don't feel strongly about it, I just think it's weird.
No, I'm not going to argue with you.
No, yeah.
Pointing out that the 30 days may put you in that period where you're sort of in between meetings, and if someone wants to express their opinion.
Oh, they can't do it publicly.
Right. Well, they can come to, even if it's at a council meeting, they can come to the work session. Like, we would have that, I guess. So, okay. And this is just all in anticipation of things that can go wrong. Not so much that it's going to be happening a lot. So, okay. So would anybody care to make a motion to adopt it as amended? Or would we like to see it with the amendments?
Personally, I'd rather see it with the amendments.
You'd like to see them?
I would.
Okay. All right. And we'll move it to August. Thank you. All right, we have, and actually, Alan, I just realized, I'm sorry, I probably should have flipped those around. We have the consideration of appointing a subcommittee to consider the role of a Newtown Borough manager. And I received 2 requests, one from Sue Turner and one from Julia Waldorf. So those 2 and myself will be our working group to look into a draft job description. Thank you both for offering to step in.
Should we should we see if we want to have a citizen involved in that? A resident of the community who's not necessarily on the Borough Council?
I think at this moment, that's probably not the right time to bring in a citizen, because the borough is examining its own administrative structure and coming up with a sample job description to share. I'm not sure that bringing in a person off council is going to be very helpful at this juncture.
Other than the fact that they are a resident of the community and they may have input on how they think this should be done and maybe have something to offer in regards to the ability of the council to make a decision.
So I understand that, Corky, but unless you've been going through this process for the last, few years, it might be hard to kind of put yourself into the shoes of everyone that's doing the job that we've been doing. I don't know. I just feel like.
And Pat.
And
Judy.
having been involved with Borough Council for 8 years, or for 4 years prior to, and 8 years as mayor, I do understand that. I just didn't know whether we would want to offer and open a position to a resident who may have something to offer to us.
Do you want, I think that's an interesting idea, and it definitely has merits, and I think at this point, you're right, this is early on. What we're looking at right now, this is just a subcommittee to create a draft job description. Here are the things that the person might do. But we may reach a point in the process of the decision-making and how it will work, where we might want to say, have a public volunteer
Or even a
group.
former. Yeah.
They're still a resident of the community. and that's-
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Okay, and we have tabled the discussion regarding parking requirements in the next stage of Steeple View, but we do have Alan Smith.
Tara, before we leave subcommittee, I would like to have the share file open to all members of council for that working.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So we have Alan Smith here to distribute plans, sketch plans with his next ideas for Steeple View to council. And Alan, if you have, say, 5 minutes, just if there's any, they're beautiful, things you'd like to direct our attention to in these. I get to share I get to roll them up with my old one.
Okay. You say so.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
Good, thanks. The plan you have in front of you is, again, as Tara said, a sketch plan. It's another iteration. It's an improvement from our Zoom meeting. As you can see, it's in color, more easily read. And frankly, as you may recall, the parking was an issue. We've done a few things here. The plan's not complete. I think we're going to lose about 10 or 15 parking spaces. I know there's a proposal to add green areas between so many parking spaces, so we'll lose a few there, and we have to rearrange a few things. But I'd say the plan is much further along than the black and white one you saw, and I'm guessing it's probably 85% accurate as to where we could go with this thing. I added a community garden and a pocket park off of State Street, and the community garden is accessed from the Center Plaza Circle. Some young people in the borough actually, accosted isn't the right word, but they stopped me and suggested that a community garden might be something that we ought to think about. And the more I thought about it, I thought it was a good idea. So I put that on there, albeit it does take the place of 24 parking spaces. So we might have that rare instance where the developer is fighting for green and the government's fighting for more blacktop. That could be something new, huh? So with that, as I said, I was just delivering it today. I was told we didn't want to get into great discussions, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them from anybody.
And to council, I would suggest that these are questions to help you understand what you're looking at so that we can go back and contemplate it. And then, of course, everyone is always welcome to ask Alan questions for clarification. And then, Alan, if you get questions emailed to you, I would ask just please make sure that gets passed on to council because other people may be wondering the same thing and help clarify for all of us. But if anyone has any sort of general questions tonight. Bob?
It's not a question. I just want Alan to know that the walkway on the Center Street Bridge was repaired within the last 12 months.
Yeah, I saw that.
PennDOT's going to be coming back to that to look at the structural integrity of the walkway. So I'm not sure how that impacts the access to the property here, but I just wanted you to be aware that PennDOT's going to do something. So just put that on your memory list.
Thank you. I will. In fact, weren't they out here 5, 8 years ago looking at that bridge, and wasn't there a movement they wanted to replace the bridge?
You'd have to ask the mayor because he's been here that long.
That's true.
And we said, no, it's historic.
They want to dismantle it and replace it and put like a veneer on it, yeah.
Yeah.
They said no.
That's not going to happen, is it? They're not. Yeah.
No.
There's
Thank
no
you.
current plan. I just wanted you to know of an upcoming repair to that side of the bridge,
Appreciate it.
because I think the steel structure is suffering from an integrity problem, so.
Yeah, I know the boards were really wonky. I
Those have
used
been
them.
replaced.
Yeah, no, I know.
But the steel structure supporting all that is questionable.
Okay.
Not dangerous, but it's going to be reviewed for what is the long-term solution to bring that walkway into that corner. So I just want you to know that that's an active thing that we have presently nothing to do with, okay? Because it's a
Great.
PennDOT road and bridge.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Smith?
Mr. Smith, one more thing. We just received, and I'll defer to Nicole, a report from the county concerning bike trails and how they're thinking of uniting the communities to the river, and also the rails to trails coming up the Newtown from a railroad area. So we have been receiving some information also, and Nicole's our point person on that. So when we're talking about the greenway between Center and the ultimate bridge to the ball fields. That may be a element for the county to consider as part of the directions of the trails.
Does that mean we can get money from the county, Bob?
I'm not sure, but, unless you ask, you don't get, okay, Alan? So I just wanted you to be aware of ancillary things that are happening that can concern the property.
Right, thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks very much, Alan.
One question, now that the plan now has apartments in Building 2, which wasn't in the very first iteration.
Correct.
Are the parking places for those apartments underneath 9, 10, 11, 12, or are they out in the open, or are there plans for subterranean parking under Building 2 now?
In this plan, there's no subterranean parking. It's all surface parking. The four residential buildings at the southern end are on podiums. If you look closely, you'll see the little dots which represent the podiums. So it is surface parking, but it is underneath the building, and the buildings are no longer 4 stories, they're only 3 stories. And with respect to the other buildings on the piazza, the parking for those buildings would be, what would you call it, first come, first serve through the 300-some spaces that are there.
So any apartments in Building 2 now, or condominiums, any condominiums in Building 2 would not have their own
Not dedicated, no.
dedicated spots, whereas 9, 10, 11, and 12.
It would be like an office building. You just park where you can, yeah.
And offhand, do you know how many of the parking spaces are specifically needed for the restaurant?
Well, I'm going to answer your question 2 ways. The first way is you have a requirement in your ordinance that dictates how many parking spaces are required for the restaurant, and that's what we're following there. That's the first answer. The second answer is I think your ordinance is very severe as to how many parking spaces are needed, so I think we're overparked. But I think you've heard that call from me before.
So what is the over number, or do you know?
Well, the way your ordinance is written, you take the public area, the seating area, and whoever, Counselor, if your memory's better than mine, I think you divide it by 1 space per every 50 square feet of public area. In other words, not the trash area, not the kitchen area, but basically the seating area. That's how you arrive at the number of parking spaces required. So, for example, on a 5,000 square foot building, if 4,000 square feet were public, you divide the 4,000 by 50 square feet, and I think that would give you 80, if my math is right, thank you, so 80 parking spaces.
So is that about what the
That's
current plan size?
I think actually it's a little more. I think I'm testing my memory, and if you want, I could pull it up on the computer, but I think, and it's on the documents I gave you previously, but I think it's 85 or 90 parking spaces for the restaurant.
Thank you.
Alan, you didn't happen to bring us rubber bands or strings, did you?
No, sorry,
I like them rolled.
should have thought of it.
Are there any other specific now questions from council? Thank you so much, Alan.
Thank you.
Thanks for waiting. Okay, the other amendment that I had, the TMA Bucks survey, Transportation Management Association, they are working with PennDOT to give PennDOT information on people's commute in this not yet post-COVID, but post-severe lockdown COVID commuting information. They're looking to see who's still working from home, who's driving into Philly and where, and they want to convey this information to PennDOT to help them decide road management and traffic management on the major roads in the Delaware Valley. So they are asking municipalities to please promote their SurveyMonkey to the public and ask their public to fill it out. They've got little pre-made informational pieces. So my question is council comfortable with putting this survey on our website and putting it in the e-newsletter and just promoting it to the public on the behalf of TMA Bucks and PennDOT?
Yes.
Okay. All right, great, thank you.
Consensus is yes.
Yes, okay. All right, then we'll send it over, and I think Judy may have some of it already. I'm not sure who got it. I know I got it. I know Bob got it because he sent it, so we'll make sure you get that, Judy. All right, and on to the solicitor's report, and Mike and Nicole. And Nicole, I have never actually seen you in person, and it's very nice to see you in person, and thank you for coming.
This is her on my side here.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only item we
Wait, Michael.
I apologize. The only item we had this evening was a discussion to extend the Steeple View preliminary plan approval, and I believe that that has been tabled until next month.
Which meeting?
The
The council meeting.
council meeting on the 10th.
Correct. All right, there may be, and it depends if we need it at that time, some discussion at the work session, but this would be more conference question with the solicitor, not the official approval.
Does that require an advertisement?
No.
Other than the regular agenda items? Okay.
And you will be getting a memo from us tomorrow or Thursday about the recent additions to Act 65 regarding the publishing of your agenda, and when your agenda now has to be on your website, and any changes and any deviations from your agenda that was recently signed into law. So we've just completed the memos on that for all of our clients, so I said, but you should probably have it tomorrow.
What's the effective date?
August 29th, so it will go into effect once for all of your September meetings, when the agendas have to be put up on the website, and any time if you're going to amend anything, what you have to do with respect to be consistent with the law.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the solicitor?
There was something that came from PSAB today, I believe, about another legislation that was passed with regard to telecommunications technology. I think it was cell something or others. And I guess my question is our ordinance that we just amended this past year covering successfully, or do we need to make any amendment to that?
The answer is we're not 100% sure yet. We've been monitoring this bill. This is a small cell bill, I guess they're referring to it as, and we have been taking a look at it. We haven't analyzed the final form of it yet, and as to whether or not anyone is going to need to amend their ordinance to be consistent. So we are looking at that also.
Thank you. All right, on to our engineers report. Michelle?
I have no agenda items for you tonight. You should have received our engineers report earlier tonight. We talked about the status of the road program. I don't know if anybody else has any questions for me. I'd be happy to answer them.
Anyone? I think that was your main report.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, approval of minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the May 5th, 2021 online work session minutes.
Second.
We have a motion, of a second. Question or comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes.
I move to approve the June 2nd, 2021 online work session minutes.
Second.
Comment or question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes.
I'll make a motion to approve the June 8th, 2021 online council meeting minutes.
Second.
Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Motion passes. Thank you all.
Just a point of order. What happened to the May council meetings? Shouldn't it have been in there, in the sequence?
We did it already.
Approved last month.
This one had to be, the work session one had to be revised.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All right, budget and finance?
I can do it, but I need the number right. Oh, yeah, I got it. Okay. Might look, see my printer went off.
Oh, here, do you want to look at mine?
I make a motion to accept, subject to audit, the consolidated expenditure report for the month of June in the amount of $213,828.43.
Second.
Any questions or comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes. Marv, the Planning Commission update?
Okay, so Planning Commission was just last night, so quick turnaround on update. There was substantial progress made on the review of the advanced draft of the comprehensive plan. The process has fallen somewhat behind because there were 2 meetings that were almost entirely taken up by the Friends meeting discussion, so really not much got done for 2 months. So if you look at the timing strategy, we're definitely behind. Still should work out fine. In terms of our new parking lot ordinance, the commission was, number one, very happy with how quickly it got moved on. And also very complimentary of how it looked. They do have some suggestions, which they will make available to us.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Marv?
The only thing I was going to ask Marv, next on the agenda, I'm going to be talking about the Delaware and Lehigh Trail feasibility. I just want to make sure that Planning Commission, I've been talking to them a lot, and they said that they're going to make sure that what they are presenting to us is going to be part of our plan. So I just want to make sure that connection is being made.
That this trail will be within.
Right, like.
An extensive, section considering possibilities on, non-car oriented transportation and trails.
Okay.
In the next 10 years. I do believe that this is the Delaware and Lehigh Valley Trail is part of that,
Right. So that the only reason, my main reason for asking is that with the grants, it's good that feasibility studies that are done by the county link to whatever we do. So I just want to make sure that our comprehensive plan has, if we have specific information that the vote is to be interested in moving forward with, it would just be nice if I could say, oh, and look, it's in our 10-year plan, So I just want to make sure.
And one of our advantages is that the Bucks County Planning Commission is integrally involved in our.
Yeah, well, that's why I was hoping that I kind of, the dots aren't completely connecting because I speak with Paul, so I just wanted to he said that would be a topic of discussion, so thank you.
And Marv, I do want to make sure that there's the two. One is the Newtown Rail Trail, and then the other one is the Newtown to Delaware and Lehigh Trail, which are 2 separate systems. Right. They connect. But so we would need both names.
It's all very new.
Yeah. In our wish list.
It heads out. The exact route isn't final, but it kind of heads out 532 direction toward the.
Yeah, there's a few different.
Yeah, if you look at the maps, there's several different, but they do come through the borough. So we just when you're saying they have it, we want to make sure they got both, and they're 2 different ones. Thanks. Thanks, Nicole.
Oh, yeah, no.
Do we want to move on to you then, or are there any other questions for Marv? All right, Nicole?
Okay, and Bob, I apologize. I laughed earlier because I have all these pages of stuff to read about the trails, so I'll try to keep it interesting, but it actually is very complicated and it can all be available to you. There is going to be a link with council's permission that we will put up on the website, and you can see exactly what they are planning. It's called the Newtown to Delaware and Lehigh Canal Trail. The Planning Commission previews trails connecting Newtown to the Delaware and Lehigh Canal Trail. The Bucks County Planning Commission has identified a proposed network of trails to connect the Newtown area to the Delaware-Lehigh Canal Trail. Incorporating information from studies, initial survey, and outreach efforts in fall of 2020, the Planning Commission has identified 11 potential trail routes which connect communities of Newtown and Yardley boroughs, Lower Makefield, Middletown, Newtown, and Upper Makefield townships. To review this, we'll have to give you the link, and you can also provide feedback through the webpage comments feature. They are opening this comment period for proposal It actually started on July 5th and will go until July 23rd. So if you do have a strong opinion on this, I suggest that you do comment. And the Bucks County Planning Commission, I find to be very accessible too. So I think that they would be open, their emails are there to contact them directly as well. So I'm trying to break it down to let you know exactly how the borough is affected by this. Newtown Township has a lot, if you look at they're doing a lot of connections, and we do have a lot too, and some of them are substantial, so I just want to make sure that we understand what the what Bucks County Planning Commission is thinking about. This does not mean that this is going to happen. This is their feasibility study. Obviously, any plans that would be approved would be at the time of council. We could at some point do a resolution to say we do support it, as we have with the Rails to Trails. So the first thing is the Newtown to Scudder's Fall Bridge alternate alignment segment. So each segment has like a B or an A, or a B, or a C, depending on where it is. They're suggesting a Frost Lane sidewalk, Edgeboro to Linton Hill Road. And the sidewalk is proposed. And basically, I had asked the question, well, can these sidewalks be bike lanes instead of sidewalks? And the answer was, with the dimensions of our streets, that isn't possible. So that was just one question I had asked, because you'll note there's going to be two different sidewalks that are I guess would be requested, whatever. All right, so the next one is Newtown to Yardley Borough. And in that one, they're looking for Center Ave and Penn Street bike sharrows. And that would start at South State Street and end at Elm Ave. So bike sharrows doesn't mean that there's going to be a bike lane. It just means that it's going to be very bike friendly. So that would include signage. And the nice thing about this one that we have to keep in mind is, since State Street is a state road, that was one of the things we were talking about when you were going to redo the streets. These are things that would be great to know when you do redo the street, because you can start, as you're doing all the engineering work, you can start thinking about, okay, where can the sign go? Where is it appropriate? And the same will go for the South Elm Ave to Washington. So it goes from Washington Ave to Penn Street, and that's also a bike sharrows. So it's just signage, it's directions. And it's basically going to be, if you can picture it being a map for bicyclists on how to safely get from point A to point B.
And Nicole, if I just stepping in here, to be clear, when they're talking about sharrows, are they talking about those little, they're sort of like little arrows or little V's, and they create, without having a full divided lane?
Yeah, it wouldn't be.
There's road markings, right?
Yeah, we would, and actually that would have to be figured out as well, because we have so much parking. It might, on some of our roads, just be signs.
Right, without the sharrows. Okay.
But it could have something to remind you that a bike could be on the road with you at some point. I don't know, like how they do
Sometimes they
it.
have those V markings without the full lane. So, okay.
Right, so on a place like Sterling, Sterling's one of the, on a place like Sterling, that could make sense because, and actually I think, that one actually got taken out of the process from what they are suggesting here. But let's pretend that has less people all the time parking on it. So I think there's going to be some discussion on what actually each sharrow will look like. So the next one is called the Newtown to Yardley Borough Alternative Alignment Segment. And this is a Frost Lane sidewalk, Edgeboro to Linton Hill Road. And the sidewalk is proposed, concrete and cement. So then the next one is to get from Sterling straight down Lincoln, and that actually has room for a bike lane. That one we have enough width there for a bike lane.
So you get to Chandler Hall.
Yeah, they said Pickering Manor. Oh, it ends at Pickering Manor Apartments. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Yeah, exactly. So, but what'll happen is then the township picks up from there.
Okay.
So one unfortunate thing is that when Pickering did their renovations, that they didn't add a sidewalk to their side, because that would be easier But because we don't own that side of the land, we weren't able to kind of, work for that during their construction. So the new, so then we would have to do it on our side. And that's, basically, Paul said, it's just to make less congestion for when, people are walking with a stroller or riding a little toddler bike, plus bicyclists that are serious about biking and keeping them safe. And that is what is proposed. Like I said, these maps can be available on the Bucks County Planning Commission website, and like I said, if we can post it online, then people can look at it and also give their opinions on whether or not they think it's a good idea.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Nicole, I
know, it's hard to see. Yeah, it's real hard to see.
Every time I turn around, there's another trail thing. There's Neshaminy Trail, there's Newtown Township Trail, then there's this one and other ones and all the overlays, and I got very crazy. I did notice that one of the alternate routes that was being proposed in the Newtown Scudder's Fall thing involved the potential Frost Lane Bridge.
So they are aware of that easement not working out for the swale. Is that what you were going to say?
Well, actually, there is no problem with the bridge part because that's in the township and that's not an issue. It was like the trail to get over there. We have an easement on one side, so that's not going to be an impediment.
Okay.
So, but I just wanted to make sure that that was still alive because that link would have positive benefits just for the community, and in addition to getting over to Scudder's Falls Bridge.
So I had sent them the information that we had gained during the swale.
Yeah.
So whether or not they took, because I guess I'm a little confused about that too. Why wouldn't we be able to do a swale there, but we can do a bike trail?
Because the swale had to be in the center of that because of the way actually, I should probably turn this over to Michelle.
It had to be on both properties, and we have permission up for one of those properties, and the trail and the connection to the bridge could happen on the property where we have permission.
So the only thing that I can think is because the bridge isn't approved and because that area hasn't been secured, then they didn't put it as part of it. But I mean,
well, they listed it in that big chart, and it's still considered as one of the alternates.
so I think that, so let me
And I
just
also
think. If that's where Frost hits there.
Where Frost dead ends into Edgeboro.
Right.
Where the swale we were going to improve the swale, but we can't improve
Right.
the swale, but we do have the easement to the south of the swale where the path entrance to a potential bridge could go, because the bridge is already on other properties in the township.
Okay, so I definitely had a miscommunication because I did not understand that we at all could use part of that access.
I think because the path would be narrower than what we need for the full drainage to get credit.
Right, we didn't, just like you just forget the swale altogether. I mean, whatever's there is there, but we do have access to the bridge. And the reason I bring this up is that project is.
So this is why I asked for questions, because yeah, I was like, because I wanted to get all these things answered.
Well, I was not sure from what you said, and then I looked it up and I read all the stuff that you had posted, for council to review for the meeting, and I said, oh, good, I'm glad to see that segment is still on there.
Yeah, I guess I didn't see it as part of, but you're saying it was an alternate.
It was one of the many alternates.
Right.
Yeah, and maps are very difficult, but I'm hoping that, and actually I tried to use the link that was in that sample.
I think you need the link on the one from the email. For some reason, when it went over to share file, it was real blurry.
Yeah, well,
so that's why I sent it like separately as its own whatever. But
I'll look for that.
No, but I will get that. I will, I guess, make sure. But I do know that I definitely. They asked me specifically about the swale. So, and I said that we weren't able to use that area.
For the swale.
Right.
Okay, so, all right.
So I may have led them.
You'll because when I get on to do comments, I'm going to say, put that one back in.
Right.
But,
Well, I mean, more importantly, they could have been here tonight and you could have actually told Paul that in person, but.
I was at a meeting about it yesterday, so it doesn't, the timing would have been different anyway.
Okay, but yeah, I'll ask that question for sure.
Okay.
I mean, if it's still there, then that's good, right? It's just, it could get, I guess my whole point was, it could be maybe more of a priority if they knew that that was something that we have enough space.
Rather than an alternate. Right. Or alternate number 3.
Yeah, and then, and my other question for you is, I was trying to figure out where this whole process is. So they are doing the feasibility study as opposed to preparing an application to be able to fund a feasibility study. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
so
and
feasibility stage.
Right, it's in the very early stages, and basically, because of course I asked for the financial implications to the borough, and the answer is that we would be the ones that need to source the funding for all the sidewalks.
Okay, so whatever's within the borough is the borough's responsibility.
Right, so for instance, if we redid State Street and it costs X amount of dollars for the Sharrows, then that's either funding we'd have to gather. Now, State Street's a good one because it's a state road, and now there's apparently a active transportation person that you can speak to directly at PennDOT that is supposed to be helping find money to make it easier for bikes, so. But yeah, so it's definitely, in the future would definitely be, in essence, either a financial burden or something that we would need to have to find some grants to get done. The other question I did ask, just in case of anyone that is on Frost or on Edgeboro and is wondering, as far as, would they have a choice about this? Of course, if you do not, if you didn't want a sidewalk at all, then that would be something that, the current council at that time would discuss. They wouldn't have to be, because you're putting it in the right of way, so that's why the borough's paying for it, and like each individual homeowner wouldn't be paying for it. But at the same time, they would be responsible for now shoveling snow on that property. So Paul had said sometimes that's one of the biggest, complaints, I guess, they have when sidewalks are put in without the person actually wanting a sidewalk.
May I ask a question? Was there any discussion about concrete sidewalk versus a bituminous trail?
It's definitely concrete sidewalk. Concrete cement was listed on all of the sidewalk, oh my gosh, Frost Lane sidewalk, Edgeboro to Linton Hill, and then the Edgeboro sidewalk, it both said concrete and cement. It didn't say the other words.
We suggest a bituminous trail because usually they're wider.
Mm-hmm.
And more, of course, you could have more people on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I said is, can we do a bike lane there instead? And they said no. It doesn't have the right.
I would agree
All the
with them.
trails in Tyler Park are McAdam.
Yeah.
All the trails.
But I think what you're saying is then it necessarily in a snowstorm wouldn't be shoveled?
It depends upon the ordinance, and maybe Mike could answer this too, but usually if it's in front of your property, you are responsible to shovel it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't, just from what they wrote in their study, or in their proposal, it says concrete and cement.
Well, because they're proposing that we improve our sidewalk network, basically.
Because it's not just for bikes. Right, exactly. It's not just for bikes, it's for pedestrian in general.
And then you can have the bicyclist next to the pedestrian, and they both have a safe place to go. That's
Yes,
how I read
that's-
his answer.
Right.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Nicole? All right, thanks very much.
Welcome, thank you.
Okay, Julia, on to zoning.
Okay. So we are nearing the end of the E-code episode here. We are getting ready to adopt the updated Newtown Borough Code. And I had put information for you all to take a look at in our share file. including an adoption checklist, which I've reviewed now with Nicole. That would be Nicole Fight, so to get all the details correct here. So what I am doing today is the first part of this checklist, and that is to introduce the proposed code and to select a date for final enactment. And based on the calendar and that we have to have at least 30 days notice prior to that date, that brings us actually to the September regular meeting, which would be September 14th. So I would like to make a motion. I believe I need to do this as a motion. Is that correct? Yes, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the solicitor to advertise adoption of the updated Newtown Borough Code at a public hearing to be held on September 14th, 2021.
Second?
Questions, discussion, and comment on this date?
You have, of course, all read all 667 pages.
Over time.
Over time, we
Over
have all
time.
read all of it and more and have revised it, yes.
Yes, many times.
Yes. One thing I did want to point out to those of you who were, when I read the ordinance to be adopted, and I thought, wait a minute, where's all the zoning and saldo changes? And I realized we actually had already passed those amendments, and therefore they're not part of this. But adopting the new great big book is what I'm proposing.
Right. All right, do we have any public question or comment on this vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion passes.
That's all I have on that.
All right. Thank you, Julia. Do we have any old business?
Sure.
Bob?
The paint for the crosswalks has been ordered, paid for, and delivered. We are finalizing the identification of all the crosswalks, and we will be doing that, hopefully completing it before the school term starts in the fall.
Great, and school term starts that Monday before Labor Day this year, so.
Well, we may slip into September, but it's a go.
Great, thank you.
The Cable Franchise Consortium is at the penultimate stage of finalizing the new franchise agreement with Verizon. Verizon is very adamant that it be a 5-year term instead of a 10-year term. Some people speculate maybe that means they're going to try and get out of cable service eventually. On the other hand, now they're out of media, so they've got to be in something. But so that should be moving toward its conclusion. I doubt we'll have a resolution by the next meeting, but very soon.
Thanks so much, Marv. I know that's, you've put a lot of time into that. Any other old business?
Yeah, I had a question for the chief, actually. We had tried, I know, to get a part-time police officer, and he ended up taking a job somewhere else. Have we had any luck finding someone? I know you're shorthanded.
Yes, we're still shorthanded. We did, council approved the hiring of an individual, and he took a full-time job with another police department pretty much 3 days after the council approved of him. We are accepting applications. We're in the process of doing some background checks. In order to increase the pool of candidates, we've entered into an agreement with an app. It's called Police One app. It'll widen the net of individuals that are aware of our hiring. We've been getting quite a few applications through that. Unfortunately, we're getting a lot of people from Philadelphia who want to leave Philadelphia, and we keep on telling them it's just part-time. But yes, we are in the process, and actually we'll probably be asking the police committee to meet shortly to interview a couple of candidates so that we can fill those slots.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Any other old business? New business. Public to be heard?
Paul Salvatore, 148 North Elm. I just want to agree with what the mayor had said earlier about adding somebody from the community to your little group. And I can think of a couple ex-borough council presidents that you might tap. I'm sure they're very familiar with the job. So if you need, you might reach out to them. And as far as the chief, I believe we're in line to get some, is it the recovery, all right, American Rescue Plan, is that it? Money from that? $140,000
Correct.
or $240,000?
Yes, split over 2 years.
Right. Well, I believe that can be used to hire a police officer. So instead of hiring a part-timer, maybe if we hired a full-timer, we could get him.
You can apply it towards the wages of first responders if it is specifically COVID-related. So we can say you had to work overtime to address these particular COVID-related issues in the community. Therefore, we are going to use the ARP funds to cover what we pay for those wages, but we can't just pay for wages in general.
Okay, because I keep hearing that this money's available, that police or be able to build up their, support the police. I guess you can't hire a police officer.
There's there's certain things you can do with it. There's a whole set of guidance, and it's basically certain infrastructure, bandwidth for internet, and storm sewer infrastructure, and COVID-related. So if you had a COVID loss due to income, for example, or the borough had COVID expenditures that were not reimbursed by the county, there's a whole set of parameters. So that's one thing that we'll be looking at, but specifically saying we're going to hire a police officer using it, I'm afraid it doesn't work.
Okay, and the other question I would have is, if we're considering hiring a borough manager, how are we going to pay him? Him, her, person? Where's that funds coming from?
Well, ultimately, it comes from us, the community.
So you would have to raise our taxes.
I don't know.
Well,
That's part of the process.
okay, because before we hire a borough manager, I'd rather see us hire more police. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Joe Lovey, 151 North State Street. I have no problem with hiring a manager. I just have one question. What are the 3 reasons why we need one? If you could tell me. I just want to know the 3 reasons why we need a manager. Because usually when the budget's $4 million, almost $1 million goes to the police. So I just raised the question. Usually from an organizational perspective, it's either a people issue, head count, skill sets, organizational structure, which is people, process, or technology issue. So I just raised the question, do we know if it's a process issue? Do we know if it's a technology issue? Do we know if it's a people issue that maybe the people on the board, that the skill sets, we have new people running for the board next year. If you ask me, I see that everybody has volunteer experience, but I think what's really important is if you look at publicly traded companies now, you must have a financial background. If you don't know how to read a balance sheet and financial statement, and there's a difference between GAAP accounting and governmental accounting, these are key things. Now, you guys might raise money for Rotary Club or whatever, but do you really know how to run a business? Because that's what you guys are. You are my board of directors. You have $4 million. You have to spend it properly. So again, I'm just going to ask one question. What are the 3 major reasons why we need to hire a manager? Then I come back and go, okay, what are the skill sets that they need? And have we really assessed, are the processes we have in place and the technology that's in place, is it effective and efficient? Because I set up a $100 billion finance company in 15 countries for BMW. $4 million, I have to be honest with you. I could do your budget on a napkin. I can do it, not others, okay? But the question is that what's changed from all the years ago till now? It's news to me. Okay? So I just say, just tell me right now, what are the top 3 reasons why we need a manager?
So,
Because
actually.
it should be like that.
Yeah, a lot actually has changed, and this is part of the issue. We have a secretary, we have a treasurer, and the exterior world, there are more and more demands made, and they just get picked up and kind of plowing your way through. That is one piece, is the external demands from the world. There's just more governmental requirements, more forms, more things that just need to be done, and it's accumulated over the years. Another piece is
Regulatory issues then, is that correct?
I suppose you could say it that.
Okay, regulatory.
And there's a wide range of them. And then there's that when you're talking about that sort of managerial role, everybody has a role that they do very well. There's the bigger oversight and the managing, coordinating, and directing type of role over the long-term period of time. Council members come in, you've got a 4-year term, there's a big learning curve, you do your work, everybody's very dedicated, puts in a lot of time, and then some people stay and some people go. So there's that, it's a managerial role, which is why a lot of boroughs, even our size, do have one. Now, maybe we don't need one, but what we've decided is, looking at everything, it's worth looking into. And so what we're starting with is, what would that person do?
So you gave me 2. What's the third?
Right. So you want a third reason, and my third reason is,
Why not?
it's not quite the reason you're looking for. It is, do we need one, and what would they do, and how would that work? We have not yet decided, yes, we are absolutely going to go ahead and do this.
That's now creating a position for them. My question is this: we have a secretary, we have a treasurer. First of all, if you ask me, a treasurer is not really a treasurer. It's bookkeeping.
No, she's more like a finance director.
Let me just finish. She's investing money for us?
No.
No, but she's more than a bookkeeper.
Joe, I think what's important for you to know is that the Borough Council's been looking at this for a while now. We had an administrative consultant come in and do an evaluation of the borough's administrative structure, made some recommendations. One of them was to consider whether we want to shift to a manager-council governance. That is to change.
$4 million.
No, wait, Joe, just listen. That we needed to look at how the borough is being run for the betterment of the community. And so the first step was recommended that we figure out what is it that we need and what would that person's role look like, okay? And how might that affect our current administrative structure, and what would be the benefits, and certainly what would be the costs, okay? And then the next thing we have to do, once we've decided on that, is to pass an ordinance that allows us to create the position. All these things are for public input. But just to tell you, Joe, that we are one of very few municipalities, even smaller than we are, that don't have at least a part-time manager. And there's a reason for that.
My question is this. Pat Hours, what are her roles and responsibilities? It appears from where I listened to all the minutes and I watched all the tapes over the last 16 weeks or whatever this pandemic did, is that I saw comments even from Robert that a lot of the roles and responsibilities you guys are supposed to do are now falling on her shoulders. So I guess my question is I don't want to get offensive, but my question comes down to, I need to know as a taxpayer, and I'm going to ask real difficult, just pungent questions of, what is it that people are calling for? If it's regulatory, well, then we hire a special person for this.
Let me try to answer your question.
Excuse me?
Let me try to answer your question, because I've been on.
I wanted to know what the top 3
I'm going to give you the third reason. To spend your money wisely and effectively.
So you mean to tell me that all the other years you haven't been spending my money wisely and effectively?
I wasn't there. I can't answer that.
So
my question today.
But you've been here for a couple of years.
My question now is whether we're effectively utilizing every dollar that we collect from all of us wisely and effectively.
I'm asking
I can't answer that question today.
I'm asking you now. You've been on my board for how many years?
1.5.
1.5. Have you been using my money effectively and wisely?
No.
What?
And I'll tell you why.
Get out.
Let me tell you why.
Get out.
No, let me tell you why.
Tell me why.
Because from my perspective,
Yeah.
in my assignments,
Uh-huh.
I have found that it was necessary for me to take a more effective and daily role in running my portion of the responsibilities. And we are making some changes to utilize our tax dollars more efficiently and more effectively. That is an ongoing process we do every day. And we should continue to do that every day so we can look you in the face and say, we're doing a good job.
First of all, I would assume from a compliance perspective, it's been audited and so forth, so there's no fraud, okay? I assume we've always been under budget, so that's that. My thought is that out of $4 million, $1 million of it, bear with me, $1 million of it's the police department. I assume, and I could ask him, if he's using his budget wisely and effective. So now I've got $3 million. I can go down in the big pieces to say a portion of it's, lighting and so forth. Why we pay money to the ambulance squad, I have no idea, but we've done this historically, okay? But whatever the case, my question is this. If you make that comment to me, Robert, no, we haven't been using it effectively, now I have to ask my next question. What areas have we be effective? I'm being serious.
I mean,
I'll tell you what, you want to know, Robert?
I'll give
I'll tell you one example.
Stop interrupting,
I'm
please.
so sorry.
To be more effective in cleaning our snow relocation, to make Washington more available for customers, for those businesses, to review how we clean streets and manage our streets and proper signage. That's what we've been doing. We've been doing studies, we've been analyzing it, we've been talking to our contractors so that we can utilize our dollars better with every day that we change. We have different businesses, we have different kinds of people in town. We have been very active behind the scenes in looking at how we run this government and whether we're using our dollars effectively. That's the answer. That's the third thing you've asked us to do, and we're doing it.
Well, I have to be honest with you, it's really not, that doesn't explain to me why we hire another person. I have,
Joe,
let me
it's,
just,
wait, Joe,
Just a minute.
It's
You can't cut me-
9:40. We are only beginning to look at it. So I think your
Well,
input's
no,
important.
I just
I
have a
want to hear
question.
it, but it's 9:40. You've been going
Businesses-
over your 5 minutes.
No, businesses.
I'm going to pull a Bob Walker on you.
You could call the cops and have me arrested like Bob Walker. I really don't care. I just have one question. We spent $475,000 for a piece of property at the bird in hand that came out of our taxpayer money. That came out of funds. We didn't even vote on that from a legislative perspective. You guys voted on that. If you ask me, $475,000. First, we paid a premium for the
Bob,
property.
I'm sorry. Joe, we got grants, we got donations, and now we're diverting. We really are diverting, okay?
Well, look, I'm going to come back because I want to know concrete, not that you've been working on this, concrete, 3 major reasons, and my question is this. Whatever consultants you had, I want to know whether or not this. Do we have the most effective technology for these women? That the processes are leading edge? Not best practices, but leading edge, better practices. Maybe it's not the same as somewhere else, but they're effective and efficient. Then my question is people. When I say people, skill sets. Even the skill sets on the board. If our board doesn't know the questions to ask, maybe these are not the right people for the board. That's how all the companies are now changing.
So, Joe, let's
coming back to
continue
you
our
guys on this.
conversation.
I'm coming back.
All right.
I mean, I'm serious on this one. Sorry to bother you. But truthfully, $4 million, I could do it on a napkin. I'm being serious.
Thanks, Joe. Do we have any other public comment? No. Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.